Good afternoon and welcome to Columbia Museum of Art. This is our final talk for Black is Beautiful, and I'm here with some very, very beautiful people today. I'd like to introduce you to Damian Johnson, who is a phenomenal mural artist, but also a visual painter, right? And just phenomenal. Ignore the name Wilson because his name is Damian. I really know what I'm talking about. And then I also have Michael Dantzler, who is a phenomenal photographer here in Columbia, South Carolina. You can see a lot of his work all over the place. Every time I look around, Michael, I'm seeing something that says Michael Dantzler. I say, hey, I know that guy. And then we have two phenomenal aficionados, and that's what I'm gonna call them. We have Luther Battiste, who is a phenomenal jazz aficionado. He has a show still, right? Oh,
Yes, yes.
Yes, I do.
yes, I
World
know.
class jazz
You
every
said what?
Sunday.
Every Sunday. And I'm telling you, it's phenomenal. It's just phenomenal. It reminds me of my home and on Sunday nights when my dad used to play jazz. And then we have Dolores Logan, who is an African art aficionado. I'm telling you, her artwork throughout from all over the world is just phenomenal. And I'm so glad that all of you all are here today. In You all are here today in regards to talking about Black is Beautiful. And my first question to you is, how is the Black is Beautiful exhibit? How did it leave you when you walked away? When you left that exhibit, how did you feel? Anybody can take it.
Okay. Um, I felt reaffirmed. I
Mm,
was I reflected back to my first experience with the Columbia Museum, and
mm,
I remember having a talk with a couple of people who were deeply associated with the museum, and I said, I just didn't see myself. Why do I have to go to Brooklyn? Why do I have to go to Seattle to see images that reflect me? And within a year or so, the Columbia Museum had an exhibition called Hobo Art, and it was African art from the River State. It
mm,
was a wonderful exhibition. It was in and out. It was there quickly, but it was memorable. And then they did Color of Chemistry
mm,
at a couple of years later. I didn't realize then how long it takes to roll out an exhibition at a museum. So I have a new appreciation for that. You
mm,
can't just suggest it and make it happen.
mm.
It takes time to plan.
Yes, it does.
This particular exhibition, Black is Beautiful, is my era. So when I walked in and I saw all those images from that era, it brought back some memories of everything that was happening at the time,
Mm,
Okay.
reaffirming, because that is a period when Black people came into their beauty differently.
mm.
Uh, we came into our beauty differently and naturally.
Yes.
Uh, many of us abandoned straightening our hair. And
Mhm.
that at the time was a political statement.
Yes, it was.
It was discarding what was outwardly imposed originally, and then deeply embedded in our culture. And I grew up in a family that owned beauty salons and barbershops and other things. And but it wasn't a problem when I went natural, because they also understood the tenor of the times.
Mm,
So, um, main point I want to make is that it was reaffirming. We
mhm.
knew that we were beautiful. We were glorifying self, claiming self,
Beautiful.
and of course, some people and the styles that were created during that era are still popular and ever evolving, just like where they emanated from in Africa. And we just selected African culture from anywhere we wanted to. We claimed all of it, and they claimed us back.
Very good. Luther?
Yes. When I left, I thought about the Sly and the Family Stone song of the 1960s. I was thankful and thoughtful. Yeah. And I was thankful because I served on the museum board for many years, and I was president of the board, and Dolores and I served together. And I was thankful because I was so happy to see that the museum was concerned and thought it important to have the Black images that were in that particular exhibit. I was thoughtful because, as Dolores said, we're both products of the 1960s. That was a very special time. When I went to University of South Carolina in 1967, it was 1968 was a year of major change. Yes. When I went there, Charles V. Hamilton and Stokely Carmichael published the book, Black Power. And for me, I left a small town where I'd gone to all Black schools, and the University of South Carolina had about 15,000 students. And so I was going to school with white teachers and white students for the first time in my life. And then all of a sudden, this book challenged us to look at ourselves differently. We grew up during that time period. Black people were referred to as colored and Negroes. And to say we were Black was a powerful, powerful statement at that time. And it made us look at ourselves differently. It made us define our community differently. And developing a Black consciousness on an all-white college campus was really challenging. And during that time period, you had the 3 students killed at South Carolina State. You had Martin Luther King killed. You had Robert Kennedy killed. And you had Vietnam all going on at the same time. So it really challenged you. When I went through that exhibit and looked at those images of the Grandasa models and the jazz culture in there, it really made me reflect on the 60s, and it really made me thankful and thoughtful.
Thank you. That's really good.
Well, if I had to say something about the exhibit, coming from an artist who you go to exhibits all the time, you see work all the time. So, things have to change when you walk into the exhibit. So I try to personalize or make connection with whatever the exhibit is, make a connection with me and what's going on in my life. It was real easy for Mr. Batiste to make a connection with what was going on in the exhibit because it happened in his time. But if I had to make a connection with this exhibit, what's going on in our time, leaving this exhibit, it was just like confirmation. Some thoughts I was having, it was confirmation. And when I say the thoughts I was having, of course, right now there's a giant in front of us. It's an ocean, it's a problem, and it presents itself as big as an ocean. But tiny drops make an ocean. So the solution has to be just as big as that ocean. And we're the tiny drops. When I left this exhibit, I think about the whole Black Lives Matter and the things that's going on with us right now. And I'm a common man, in a sense, a country boy. And I understand that if we handle things at home first, if we all speak to our sons and our neighbors first, all of those tiny drops will make an ocean, and the solution will be there. So when I saw this Black is Beautiful, I call it my Black is Beautiful because I personalize it. But we got to identify as Black. That's the first thing we got to do. We look at everybody and they want to identify as different things, and it's fine. But we need to identify as Black, right? And understand the beauty in Black, not to hate yours, but just to love mine. Identify as Black and see all the beauty in Black. And this big ocean of a problem we have would just kind of heal itself. So when I looked at these Black people in a time where it was hard to be Black or even say Black, now I know that. And they were really just within themselves, not wasting time on hating anybody else, not even mentioning anybody else, but really embracing who they were and embracing their Black. It was a beautiful thing. And it was just confirmation that when I go home, I need to call my nephews and make sure they understand that they are Black and how beautiful they are. And then from there, they can branch out abroad and show, not just say it, but show that Black Lives Matter and show that, every other problem we're having is just a problem of pride, you know? And this show, I walked through it one time, you know, and I got away from it, got my eyes off it and went back in again. It was just a beautiful thing to see people just loving themselves. And regardless if they were black, blue, purple, or red, you know, if they took the time to love themselves as these people did back then, you know, that love was showed and you know, it will heal all the stuff we got going on now. So it was confirmation for me.
Beautiful. Thank you. Michael.
All right. So seeing this exhibit reminded me of what shoulders we're on right now. As a young person, as a millennial, and thinking that just looking at the many shoulders just add levels of shoulders. I'm like, oh my God, this has been going on at the beginning of the 60s. And some of the photographs that I have seen, especially the gentleman that's very serious doing the protest, that reminded me of a photograph that I recently seen at a protest in Colombia.
Okay.
And even though there is progress, but there is also the same struggle. There is and the resilience in our struggle. But looking at these photos, I see the shoulders that we're sitting on when it comes to the progressing Black visual renaissance that's happening right now, because we have social media. We can connect the dots from it's much easier to be Pan-African now, visually, on the internet. We still have to travel. We still need to travel. We still need to go and culturally link everything. Could it be from the Gullah Geechee culture in the Low Country, and back to West to West Africa and the various countries and country societies there. But I look at this whole exhibit as shoulders, and I'm like, oh God, this is what I do now is not really new. It's on these shoulders. It is in that same voice. And I love there's like a certain balance visually. The models are not overly sexualized in the photographs. There's a balance. There's a balance, and you can see the different tones and notes of motherhood, sisterhood, brotherhood in these photographs, and focusing on the whole human being without overselling. But overselling, because sometimes we try to oversell ourselves as Black people to fit into society. No, we just need to be appreciated just to exist. Just appreciated just to be appreciated, just to exist. And I kind of caught that voice in Kwame photographs. And I just love that. And I think about the other photographers, the other greats such as Gordon Parks. I think about the other Richard Samuel Roberts right here in Columbia, how he captured the 20s and all of that. So that just adds to my mental Rolodex of shoulders that I'm sitting on. Yeah. And I'm like, man, this is why I do this work, because my work will be relevant someday in the future. Someone will look back 100 years from now, look at my work and see that it's on Kwame's work. Is it on Gordon Parks' shoulders? Is it on Richard Samuel Roberts' shoulders? So I just take it as being in that exhibit is kind of like me being at the foot of the elders in a way, just eating up visually what's going on and the storytelling and with our music, with our jazz, and all of that. So many directions, just showing a holistic Black experience at that time.
Very good. And I can imagine it had a stronger impact for you because of being a photographer. You know, in our history in the United States, we've had so many Black phenomenal photographers. James Vanderzee, and I had the honor of meeting him before he passed away, and it was his scape of all the photographs that we don't even recognize that are in history books, in our sociology books, in our history books. When they're talking about the Harlem Renaissance, a lot of those pictures are James Vanderzee's pictures. And, you know, it took a long time for him to even get those pictures to have his name to recognize and, you know, get payback for them. But it was very significant because it showed the era, but he was part of the era all the way up until he passed away. So just phenomenal. This is significant, and we know that Black is beautiful is the theme, but what is the message that you believe others carried out of that exhibit when they walked away, besides knowing, because I don't know what else they would know, besides Black is beautiful, because that was significant. What was another thing? What was another theme that they got out of those pictures? Those photographs, the dresses, everything.
Well, I think there were two twin themes, and there are many themes I think you could talk about. One is Think Black. And the essence of the exhibit was that it is good to think Black, and there's great value in thinking Black. Another theme was Black empowerment, Black economic empowerment. When you look at the photographs in that exhibit, they're talking to you about that we should invest in our own community, we should support our own businesses, we should create our own businesses to make a difference. In the exhibit, as you know, when you look at the models, when you look at the art, you see the Think Black theme, the importance of valuing our culture. When you think about jazz, you think about original music that was created by African Americans in this country. And that was so very important to them. They created a place, a venue to host the best musicians in the world in Harlem. And so they had great value in what is important to us culturally. And that was what I saw.
Very good.
And
Go ahead.
Go ahead. All right, I'll go ahead and add this. When I think of just an everyday Black person seeing this experience, I'm sure there's various perspectives seeing this, but I think I would like to note that this exhibit is the medicine to Black people having self-identity or self-cultural problems who don't have that pride. So seeing that, like, gives them a charge, like, oh, okay, like my texture, my hair is not bad. To this day, people are still struggling with that, even though the natural hair movement has been around strong for the past 10 years now. But seeing that and seeing the history of that and seeing the beauty, and like I said, not even being overly sexualized, and just in that context, in that balanced context, it means a lot to the people that struggling to accept who they are in America, where when you're not Black, it's an easier life. There's white privilege and all of that, and everything that comes with that. But it's a reflection. It's that medicine that people need. There's a lot of people that need that medicine. As we, I count myself as a little privileged to knowing my history, but people that don't even know the pride of their own history, that they go through this public school system, and they don't even know the pride of the many shoulders that we own. And when we don't know our shoulders, when we don't know our elders, the people before us, we don't take pride in who we are. But that exhibit is that medicine in us taking pride in who we are visually, and what the work that we do, the Think Black, Buy Black, all of that. That campaign has been going for a long time. And I think hopefully this is extra medicine as we see it on Instagram, on Facebook. I hope this is seeing it in a gallery is a different experience, because you get to breathe, you get the smell, and you get the touch, even though you're not supposed to touch the dresses and the frames, but it's a different experience. So hopefully that translate well to medicine, or this is who I am, and this I should take pride in, and to inspire those questions.
What happened?
To inspire exploration. Yep.
Oh, I think Dolores may be frozen.
Okay.
Yeah. Thank you, Michael.
All right.
Well, if I had to say anything, and I'm going to be repetitive, but after leaving this exhibit, when you go in and you look at this exhibit, there's no mention made of anyone else. So if you're in that exhibit, it's going to throw you into that culture. You're going to see Black. You're going to think Black. You're even going to, and it's amazing. I was walking through with one of my friends, and she's non-Black. She doesn't identify as anything, but it's amazing how when you put two different things together, and it goes with, you know, the principles of design. When you put two different things together, two things are going to happen. You're either going to accent the similarities, or you're going to magnify the differences. In that show, you hear people, and there was a you know, social distance, so I can kind of eavesdrop on people. I like to listen to people in shows, but they talk about the clothes and how they love the clothes, and look at the textures. I mean, the photo. I'm not a photographer, but Jesus, you know, you can see the textures in the clothes, and they talk about the hair, and with no hate, with no feeling left out, with no resentment, with anything, they're just loving what's going on, you know. So I think more than anything, without people even knowing, they're just, you know, living and letting live, you know. Langston Hughes, that model, living and letting live. They go in there and they see that, oh, you know, loving me doesn't mean hating you, you know. And I always say that, you know. But that show, I mean, I think he did such a great job, and it's probably, you know, it probably wasn't even on purpose, but that's where he was, and that's what he was supposed to be doing. And in that show, it made mention of nobody but Black. And so when you're gonna love it, you're just gonna love it, you know. So I think it really tells people, you know, love yourself. You know, you don't have to. I don't have to include you in my life.
In my love.
Right.
That's right. Thank you, Dolores.
Well, Luther and I are in the same zone. I expect, because we both have business backgrounds, Black business backgrounds, and we're involved in our businesses. They won't let me in the door hardly, but I come from a business background and still consult to the business that I founded. But the message that I took away was that these people who were the Brathwaites, who were young then, really understood business, and they understood advertising, and they understood the lack of Black advertising agencies and the ability to place people strategically in markets that would drive the sales of products. For that, I give them huge thanks, because they had that together. And then they did deep organization that created avenues for modeling. They impacted the advertising industry. I understand that there were magazines that were published internationally that they had photographs in. That's impactful, because the movement at that time, and still now, is international. What happens to Black people in Africa impacts us here. And what happens to us here impacts the way we're perceived and the way this country is perceived all over the world.
That's right.
I heard John Henry Clark speak once, and he talked a lot about Lumumba. I understand why he talked so much about Lumumba. Not only was Patrice Lumumba an emerging leader who was assassinated before he completely got out of the box. Right. He was the leader of the resistance in what was the Belgian Congo. Right. The site of wealth, unbelievable wealth, that is known all over the Western world, and African Americans need to know about that. I wondered why it was that when Mobutu Sese Seko, who was the first president of Zaire, died somewhere in Europe. I think he was in Switzerland, close to his money. But when he died, planes took off from the U.S., one of them holding one of these televangelists. I think it was, I don't want to name the wrong person, but I think it was somebody like Pat Robertson, one of these televangelists who had so much interest in the wealth of Zaire, the old Belgian Congo, that he jetted over there to see about whatever he was mining or extracting from that country, that continent. That we are connected to that continent. And this era showed us that clearly. That I remember when we had the talk with the Brathwaites that you moderated earlier. I asked them if they had met any of the African leaders throughout their travels, because at that time, people in Africa were involved in Pan-Africanist efforts. They were trying to organize themselves so that the continent wouldn't be bled to death by outside interests, with billions of people, billions on that continent, and the wealth that's there.
Yeah.
Why are we told that we came from nothing?
Right.
So we need to think about that and read, inform ourselves, and go check the motherland out. Don't do like some Americans who think they can go somewhere and run the country. We haven't had much experience running countries, but we certainly can learn a lot and participate and be helpful wherever we can.
True.
Tolson, could I piggyback on something Dolores said?
Sure.
We talked about our common experiences running Black businesses. And one of the things that we both grew up with in South Carolina was that we were told that our ice water had to be twice as cold. And what that means, Damian and Michael, is that when you go in business, there's a tendency, unfortunately, for some of our people to feel that they have to go to white businesses for the services that we provide because somehow their services are better. And not only must we be good, we have to be twice as good to overcome that. And we in our businesses find that we have to, if we had 100% support of our community, then it would be much easier for us to be successful in what we do. And in this exhibit, they're telling you, let's support our community, let's support our businesses. And that's something that we see every day in conducting our businesses in South Carolina.
Luther cut out. Can you hear me? We all cut out.
Yeah. We're here. Oh, she froze again. One of the things with Kwame Brathwaite was that he was inspired to pick up his weapon of choice, which was a camera, right after Emmett Till was killed in 1955, August 28th, by the way. And so he picked up his camera, but at the same time, he made an organization, AJAZ, which they were so dedicated to getting jazz artists into their community. And the only way you do that is to make sure your community is welcoming. And so that was one of the things he promoted, along with, doing these phenomenal, well, he was also very much into Marcus Garvey. And I have some very dear friends that were raised Garveyites. So knowing and understanding and reading Marcus Garvey was saying, we are beautiful. Black is beautiful. We are naturally beautiful. We don't have to look this way or that way. We need to just be our own beautiful selves. And so Kwame Brathwaite had that power with his camera to show that, to also show, and in those who have come to the museum to see Black is Beautiful, which you only have one more day, which is tomorrow to come, is that they showed a lot of the Marcus Garvey Day organizations, the parades, and the rallies that were going on. another thing about Kwame Brathwaite, which you all were really great in hitting, especially you, Dolores, was he was very involved in the independence of many of the African countries. He was there for Namibia. Yeah, he was there.
People in African countries were accessible. When say, I'm sensitive to saying we were involved in the liberation.
No, he wasn't. I mean, he was, he was not part of.
He was
involved.
there.
Right, he was there, and actually,
and he met some African leaders.
Yes, and up until today, actually, Kwame Brathwaite has been to every inauguration of Namibia. I mean, he was there, and he was involved with these African countries and during their liberations, which it shows a lot. What we have here in the museum in the exhibition is only the tip of what Kwame Brathwaite really has in his stash.
I would imagine.
And so we get to see that, and it's wonderful, and I'm looking forward to that African piece, when he does that book just on African countries, where he's been. I mean, he was with Michael Jackson, I think with the Jackson 5, the first time they did Africa. He was with Muhammad Ali when I think it was Manila or Africa.
Well, Thriller, okay.
The Rumble in the Jungle.
Yeah, right, the Rumble in the Jungle.
Here, Mobutu again.
Exactly, and so you see this photographer who's been at the heart of so many different people coming and being introduced to Africa themselves. So you're seeing that beauty. I want to ask you all, what is the significance of this exhibition today, and to see how has it changed? Have those images really changed? Are they foreign to us, or are they so much home and so familiar that you're saying, wow, things change, but things stay the same?
I would say things change, but things stay the same. And it's amazing. It's amazing how much we have going on and how broad the world is, but how actually small it is at the same time. When you look at fashion, when you go to a place and it's good to see the people and taste the food and experience a place. But if you just look at the world, all around, especially right here, right now, fashion, fashion is like, it's done a complete circle, among Black women, the natural styles are dominating, it's dominating everything. As far as clothing goes, the same type. Now we, the dresses are maybe a little smaller, maybe a little tighter, and the fashion is, a little different. But when you talk about textures and prints, at one point, I can remember when I guess I was just getting conscious, maybe in middle school, and starting to look at fashion. We wouldn't wear a whole short set, we had to break it up, have a regular t-shirt without print pants. But before, people wear prints, the whole entire outfit, prints. And you look back now, right now, we're doing the same thing again. When you take a look at these photos, the women are dressed in complete outfits. They didn't alter in any way, from head dress to the dress. And so fashion is a lot the same. The issues that they're having, in our own special way, we're having the same exact issues. But on the good side of things, the pride that they're feeling,
Dr. Tolson, Marcus Garvey said, a people without knowledge of their history, their culture, and their origin is like a tree without roots. And what this exhibit was saying was Black Lives Matter.
Yeah.
And, I was so happy that the Columbia Museum of Art was either lucky or clairvoyant to bring this particular exhibit at this time.
Perfect timing.
Because, right now, because of the events that have taken place in this country, because of excessive force and police brutality, it's made the world, it's made this country look at themselves differently. It's made us look at the issue of systemic racism. And what's so interesting is is that people now in mainstream culture can mention the words systemic racism and white supremacy. And what this exhibit was saying was that you know, we have all this going on in the country. You had all this going on in the country in the 60s, and we may have more students in colleges. We may have more Black businesses. We may have pride in our culture, but we as African Americans still have to deal with the issues of systemic racism and white supremacy. And I am so happy in this time period that we have now that we can say those words, because we know in this country, race is at the bottom of everything. There's a columnist, William Roden, who used to write for the New York Times. He wrote a book called $40 Million Slaves. And they asked him about race in the United States. And he said, and Dolores and I are on the same page on this, we used to have stereo sets with turntables and big speakers and a tuner. And when we turned all of that off, there was a hum. There was a hum there. And William Roden says in this country, the issue of race is like the hum on the stereo system. It's always there. It's always there. And I think when somebody goes and looks at this exhibit, it puts African-American people in perspective. It gives them a history, and it brings it to the present. And I think the dialogue that we have going on in this country is so important now, and it's related to what's in that exhibit.
That's very good. Beautiful.
I'm glad that Luther mentioned systemic racism. This is a time we're talking about art. Cultural institutions, including museums, have to look at themselves and look at what kind of inclusion the institution itself is creating. And we are still essential workers in this country. My father, businessman, civil rights activist that he was, responded to me when I said, why don't people want to take advantage of the benefits that they got? We participated in picketing and all kinds of civil rights activities, and people don't vote. They don't participate fully because if you don't get anything if you don't get involved in something political. My father said, you know, Dolores, slavery was a terrible, that's about the most harsh word he used with me. It was a terrible institution. And the way it ended was terrible too. He said people were just let go or made to feel that they would just be left. And then he said they were already living in what he called hay houses in South Carolina. Hay houses. I said a hay house. He said that's where you put the hay for the animals. That was their home. And then they would get a little fatback and a little meal and some greens and a little money. Sometimes they wouldn't get the money.
Yeah.
And then he said, we struggle for integration. And if I had known that integration would kill my business, because then people welcome the Black dollar, but not the Black presence.
Isn't that something?
And he had to scramble to come up with other ways of making business. At one time, large corporations bought funeral homes. My family was in the funeral business. Okay. Fortunately, they were under the threshold of business size, I imagine, that would have been interested, that would have made them appealing. But can you imagine some of the businesses that are Black facing businesses may not be owned by Black people. Right. And lots of companies had to sell just so that they could survive, because integration killed their businesses, not in a riot like in Tulsa, but just by erosion.
Right.
Once a limousine driver picked me up in Jacksonville. I was at a hotel. I'll try to be quick. At a hotel after a conference, and I had time. This limo drove up, and the man said, "Where are you going?" I said, "I got 4 hours before I go to the airport. I'm just out here looking at the river." He said, "I'll take you around town." And I said, I can't pay for a limo." He said, "I'll take you." And he chauffeured me around and showed me the parts of Jacksonville, Florida, that had been decimated mostly by immigration.
That's it.
Oh man.
And that's something.
The hotels, the restaurants, thriving businesses.
Right. So some things do change. And I guess that's part of one of the portions of it when we reflect on Black is Beautiful. Michael, were you going to say anything?
Yes. And I love where Miss Logan just left off just now about the businesses, and I think about Black Flight. I think about one of my favorite neighborhoods in Columbia, the Waverly Neighborhood, and the history behind the Waverly Neighborhood, and the complexities of when I didn't live at that time, and I'm not the best historian, but pre-integration there was a pride, there was a like we had no choice but to fit on our own type of complex. And in even though there was pros with the integration, there was the cons where we got away from being so close. And that same narrative that we hear from our families when they didn't have much, they said they didn't have much, or they didn't feel like they wasn't even aware of their poverty because there was so much social closeness, so much community closeness. And now it's like the opposite. Now there's more wealth, more access to wealth, and the social closeness, the community closeness is going like that. So and I think I'm always thinking when I hear the messages of think Black, buy Black, and that message is very relevant to this day. But you have to include design, how we design our neighborhoods. You have to design your neighborhood where we can buy from our businesses, and not just do it when it's a part of our lifestyle. I think about lifestyle, I think about design and lifestyle, about how our neighborhoods and when in closeness, where we know our neighbors and all of that. Now we move to meeting neighborhoods where we don't even know our neighbors, we don't even talk to our neighbors. You don't even know if you have a serial killer next to you or not. So, but I hear those, as I listen to my elders, they didn't have much education, but they had social closeness. There was already, now we have Kwanzaa principles, but they lived those Kwanzaa principles without knowing about Kwanzaa principles. So we have a different complexity right now. We have more technology. We can drive anywhere we want to. We can go anywhere we want to. We can get a job anywhere we want to. The freedom, there's different freedoms, but one thing that we're also sacrificing is the roots of our tree, the roots of our community closeness, the roots of our neighborhood, the roots of, because that really mattered. The roots being before before our public face, which is our family, our community, all that's intertwined. Because that's an important root to have. If you don't have that root, we're going to be a leaf in the wind forever. We're always going to be looking for confirmation or identity. We're always going to be in identity crisis. And Black people in America already have a identity crisis anyway, based on culture being snatched away and biblically being forced a Bible in our hand, or if we could just get to a Bible just to learn how to read. And I'm gonna go ahead and digress my tangent, but there's so many things stacked against us, and seeing this exhibit just showed how much that we have come from, and it just shows the journey, a needed journey. And I'm glad so many people, and this is like the most well-timed COVID times, people going through so much job insecurity right now, economically. A lot of people are really going through it right now. And I hope this exhibit tends to be some type of medicine to reach within. Sometimes the treasure is in our own backyard. Sometimes the treasure is in the place where there is the trauma that we have to face, the trauma that we try to run away sometimes when it comes to Black flight, or when we don't want to live. We have to that conversation and participate in places of the trauma to heal it. Because when we keep running from the trauma, could it be in Black flight, and all of that, when we run away from that trauma is still there. That trauma continue to go rampant, and you continue to have that ignorance. People that don't even know, Black people that don't even know themselves, they don't even know their history, they don't even know when that history was in its heyday. How Allen University, I don't know if it was an Allen University hospital at that time, but there was a Black hospital when Black patients couldn't be served in a public in a state institute fairly or treated correctly. So just having that initiative, and so yeah, just wanted to spotlight that built-in initiative, that built-in core of family, community closeness, socialization. All of that is definitely core to us, because if we don't have that, we're not rooted socially and all of that, family, even religiously, spiritually, all of that, if we're not rooted, we're always going to be a leaf in the wind. We're always going to be looking for happiness in different places and consumerism is always ready to profit off of us. True. I'm gonna just leave it there. I'm gonna just leave it right there.
We only have a few more minutes, and I'd like for you to just give me 1 or 2 lines of, I'm the diver brother. They send me to eat in the kitchen when company comes, but I laugh and eat well. This is I Too by Langston Hughes. I always think about this because he says, you know, I'll be at the table when company comes. Nobody will dare say to me, eat in the kitchen then. Besides, they'll see how beautiful I am and be ashamed. Are we still in the kitchen?
Can I comment?
Yes.
Yeah, obviously Langston Hughes, when he wrote that poem, talked about racism in America, but he talked about we are part of America too. And recently, you know, we've had our athletes, our basketball players and football players and baseball players step up and raise the issue of systemic racism. And Doc Rivers, who's the coach of the Los Angeles Clippers, I think gave a continuation to what Langston Hughes was saying, and I too. And he said, we have loved America, but America hasn't loved us back.
That's right. We
have loved America, but America hadn't loved us back. When you think about Langston Hughes, he was saying, we are Americans. We're part of this country.
That's right.
He says, but, and then now after all those years, when we look at what's happened with police brutality, with how African-American men in particular have been singled out, and with Breonna Taylor, African-American women, we're still confronting the same problems of what is our place in America? What is our position? What is our status? And, you know, although, you know, we've had an African-American president, we still have the same problems, the same issues. And because we have an African-American president, I hate to say it, we have Donald Trump. I think Donald Trump is a reaction for so many people to the hate that they had for Barack Obama. And so I think that we still have to engage in consciousness raising. We have to continue to raise the issues, debate the issues, feel the issues, if we want our America to be better, what Langston Hughes hoped for in his poem, I Too America.
Thank you, Luther. Dolores?
We need to participate in the census. Do your census report. Encourage your friends, even if they are not documented citizens, to complete the census so that we can have better or more or appropriate representation in the way monies are allocated by districts. Vote, vote, vote. Get all those people turning 18 before November that first weekend in November to register. They can register now. Luther said something that got away from me. We were talking about the poem. I like another poem by Warren Cooney about images. She does not know her beauty. She is the way he starts the poem, and the way he ends it is that dishwater does not give back. There's no reflection in dishwater. Right. You plant your feet where you are and be aspirational. That's what has carried us all the way. I have washed dishes and made burgers and all of that, but that was at a time when I was very, very young, but I know how to do it. I can make the best burger ever right now. And if I had to do that, there are many things that we can do. I want Michael Dantzler to tell us what kind of photography he is best at. I saw the photographs that you did for Paulette Cunningham for her portfolio, I believe. Is he still there?
Yeah, I'm still here. Yeah.
Didn't you do her photo spread?
Yes. Portrait and documentary photography is my specialty.
What is it?
Documentary and portrait photography is my specialty.
Okay, you did a good job.
Thank you for that shout out.
Okay.
So,
well,
do I have time?
If I had to speak to that poem, Langston Hughes, he wrote that poem, and he talks about the darker brother, the darker skinned brother, and not being allowed to eat at the table. The question was, are we still in the kitchen? Well, yes, we're in the kitchen. And I think we're back in the kitchen, actually, but being in the kitchen presents us with a choice. We can either look at the kitchen, you can choose what side of the cloud you're on. We could either look at the negative side of being in the kitchen or the positive side. But I view the kitchen as a place of growth. The kitchen is like a lab, So yeah, the kitchen takes us away from sitting with them, but it allows us a chance to eat and grow. So when we come out of the kitchen, all right. So focusing on being in the kitchen is a thing, but it's not the thing. When we come out of the kitchen, so while we're here in the kitchen, we need to eat. It gave him a chance to eat and grow. So when he came out of the kitchen, he couldn't be denied. So yeah, we're in the kitchen, but when we come out,
That's really good, because I always think about the kitchen and my house and my family. The culture of the kitchen is that's where everybody goes. You can have a dinner party and you're going to find the majority of the people are going to go and they're going to go right to that kitchen. But also I always think about the kitchen, and I'm one of those people. You better be careful what you're saying to me, because if I'm making the food in the kitchen, I got my attorney right there. But no, I'm just saying, you need to be careful. You know what I'm saying? Because the people in the kitchen can turn on you. So, you should let us out every now and then. But you're right. I celebrate being in the kitchen. The kitchen is that main place in anybody's family. That's where all those deep conversations are, in the kitchen. When did you tell them it was in the kitchen? How did you do it? We talked about it in the kitchen. The kitchen is one of those monumental places, rooms in our house, and I guess in our mentality too, and there's nothing wrong with it.
All right. So I would like to add on to that. When I think of a kitchen, I think of I live in the middle of Eastover, South Carolina right now. And we have many challenges, just as many Black rural communities. And I think about talent retention. I'm thinking about generation to generation. Now generations, more recent generations are moving to larger cities, or they're moving for opportunity. And I'm thinking about talent retention. That's one of my soapboxes right now for any town, such as my own town. I encourage our talented folks, everyone to never forget where they come from, and if they have any talents to funnel that back into their community, unless they don't mind their community dying. Because if I'm the last generation, if my generation is the last generation in this town, my town will die. But if there's a cycle, if there's a preparation, like, yo, go get your education, go get your tools, go get what you need to have. And if you can bring some of that back here, if it's sensible to bring it back here, yes. In many ways, it's not sensible to do that. Sometimes it's a challenge, because opportunities in the cities, there are more opportunities in larger cities and other places. Just like the great the great migration of back then of my I wouldn't say my grandparents, but many family members made that great migration. So they had to move for opportunity, and that was a different climate at that time to be Black in the South. Since it's not so bad now, it's still bad in some ways, but since it's not so bad now, I still think of that talent retention when we can use our talents here, because I am noticing a lot of communities and neighborhoods are becoming talent starved. There are like, it just the whole consciousness of the community is just going by the wayside, and there needs to be a delicate balance of who we are. You're going to need a janitor, you're going to need an attorney, you need a doctor, you need an engineer, you need the person that worked the restaurant, you need the restaurant owner. All of that is holistic. And I think of a community like such, and not just a community just of poverty. When with these projects, I'm sorry, this is supposed to be a 2-sentence point, but just a concentrated poverty and concentrated this and that. We're segregating ourselves over and over again, segregating ourselves further and further. And that adds to the fight of being Black. We have enough fight on us as it is to even further segregate. So we are our best fists when we're together. We are our best fists together. When we just a finger, we can't do much. A finger or two, we can't do much. But when we are forced together in our various talents and gifts, we are a force that cannot be reckoned with.
All right.
Living and not living. I digress.
No, but that was a good digression. Thank you so much. I think our time is up. And I want to thank all of you all for coming to the Columbia Museum of Arts to talk today on Black is Beautiful, a celebration of storytelling. And this has been sponsored by the Friends of the African American Art and Culture, which is FAAAC. Come see us, donate, please. Join us, please. We really appreciate seeing everyone when we have another, once we get together again during this time of coronavirus, we are in our homes in our masks. But I'm looking forward to actually being able to gather together face to face. But I appreciate you, Damian. I appreciate you, Luther. I appreciate you, Dolores and Michael. Thank you all for coming and to celebrate the ending of a beautiful exhibition. And you know what? Black is beautiful, and so are you all. So thank you so much for being here. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.